God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sunshine notice. This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of May 9th, 2016 was included in the list of notices sent to Central Records, Burlington County Times, and Courier Post. Posted on the bulletin board in Town Hall and has remained continuously posted as required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Your roll call. Mr. Barton.
Present.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Franzen.
Here.
Mr. Yates.
Here.
Mayor Lee.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, LaShawn, and also thank you for your efforts in getting us the correct documentation. At this time, I'm going to open up the meeting to public comment on agenda items only. There are two opportunities to speak this evening. One is now on agenda items. The other one will be later in the meeting after our committee reports. If you're interested in being heard at this time, please raise your hand. I will call on you. Please come to the center of the room underneath the microphone so we get you on tape. At this point, we will open the meeting to public comment on agenda items only. Mrs. Brooks.
Thank you. Brooks, Morris Middle Road. Good evening, everybody. Just a quick question. Will you be taking public comment following your budget discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so even though it's not listed on the agenda, you're going to take it right after you do your budget discussion?
Yes, number 9.
It's number 9.
Yeah, number 9 on the agenda is
Oh,
public
the
comment.
second public comment.
Right.
So you'll be taking public comment after you adopt, if you adopt the
Well,
adopting amendment?
We're not going to, the public hearing of the budget on the 23rd.
Okay.
The discussion this evening will be on amended municipal budget as introduced, just on the amendments. And the public hearing will be on the 23rd of May.
Okay, for those amendments?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I guess my question is, before you vote on the amendments, will you be taking public comment?
No.
Okay.
But we will have an opportunity to have public comment on the 23rd like we did the last month when
Right.
we're putting this together.
Okay, okay. That sounds...
There's always opportunity to, I mean, first and foremost, we need to hear from, have the committee be presented with these.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm trying to sort through. Just two quick questions on the bill list, page 2. Pinelands Commission, this is pin 50. What's the application fee for Hill Road?
Application for Hill Road is it's been an ongoing issue that's been up to Pinelands concerning the drainage on the improved portion of Hill Road. And we're working through that correction, and we have to have another filing.
I see, okay. How long has that been open, this particular application?
3 years, 4 years.
Okay. And one other RFP50, just a few down, service maintenance contract, what's that for, $1,900?
The phone systems.
For the phone systems?
Yep.
The township?
Yep.
Township-wide or for particular buildings?
That's for both the ESB building and the municipal building complex here.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public at this time? Mr. Brooks?
Stuart Brooks. Good evening, everybody. I have a question with the bill list also. It's CIN 50, Cintas Corporation, first aid supplies in the amount of 92 and 94 cents. This is a recurring type of charge. It shows up in most buildings, and I gather it's to replenish first aid supplies that are used.
Yes.
My question is, whose first aid supplies are being replenished? Is it
Municipal buildings and the municipal trucks.
Okay.
And a shop and whatnot.
Shop, the annex building, town hall.
It's not for fire, it's not for
No.
ESD? Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public at this time? Seeing no one, we'll close the public. This is where the fun starts. Susie Costales, come on down. It gives me great pleasure to present this proclamation. I need to hold your hand to get me through this. A proclamation in recognition of service to Susan Costales. Whereas Susan Costales, also known as Susie, has been employed with Tabernacle Township since 1997, as she started her career working as the office clerk and deputy registrar of vital statistics before accepting her appointment as tax collector and deputy treasurer. And whereas during Susie's tenure serving as our certified tax collector, she has fulfilled this responsibility with the highest level of professionalism in maintaining Tabernacle's tax record management process, and served in an important support role to her fellow staff members, especially LaShawn Barber, Lisa Love, Eileen Batesel, Natalie Lewis, Terry Henry, and Margaret Garino. And whereas throughout her tenure in the multiple areas of resident services in which she served, Susie helped create an environment that made residents, visitors, and fellow Tabernacle Township staff feel welcome, appreciated, and well-nourished with an endless supply of Mary Janes, Tootsie Rolls, and Jolly Ranchers. Whereas we wish to extend our gratitude for Susie's loyalty to the residents of Tabernacle and also express sincere appreciation to the Costales family for their support of Susie throughout her career, who is now being honored by friends and co-workers that are deeply appreciative of her many contributions to the community. And whereas, on the occasion of her retirement from service, the Township Committee proudly recognizes Susie for her outstanding public service and wishes to memorialize her service to the residents of Tabernacle Township as highly valued and sincerely appreciated. Now therefore be it resolved on behalf of the governing body of Tabernacle Township, I, Stephen B. Lee IV, Mayor of Tabernacle Township, County of Burlington, State of New Jersey, recognize Susan Costales for her years of service to the residents of Tabernacle, New Jersey, and extend our best wishes for many years of happiness in the future. Congratulations. There's a lot of cameras here. Back up. I'll stay back up.
Turn the
I'll hold the
flag
flag up. Cool. All right. Floor is yours.
Thank you.
She's got a speech prepared.
There's a little error in here. I was hired in 1998, but because I moved to New Jersey in 1997. Okay. I was blessed on March 20th, 1998, when Tabernacle Township hired me. In the 18 years that I have worked here, I've learned what a wonderful town this is, with best employees that became part of my family. Going through a few administrators, we finally got the best. Douglas A. Kramer, who puts more hours than anyone. LaShawn Barber, the sweetest young lady that will do anything for anyone. I kind of adopted her. All the employees here are very dedicated, even when we don't get raises. No one went to another town that paid more. When I was hired in 1998, we had 10 public works employees. We are now down to 5 full-time, and they still keep our towns neat and clean. Thank you, Tabernacle employees, all the Tabernacle residents, for the best 18 years that will always be in my heart. Excuse me. My employment here has given me a lifetime of memories. Love you all. Thank you.
Oh, Susie, we're not done. Don't worry. Don't worry. Mr. Barton.
Now, Susie, I was a little disappointed the mayor didn't do like McDonald's, they tell you how many billions they sold. That's exactly like it. But congratulations, Mayor. Enjoy many, many years of retirement with your husband.
Thank you.
Mr. Freeman?
When I think of you, I also think of Fred, and, you know, all the things that you two do together. I think you have a wonderful marriage, and I think, you know, life has been real good for you for the last 18 years or so, and it's nice to see you so happy. When I think of you downstairs, I think of the candy. It makes paying the taxes so much easier. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to see that the new tax collector has continued on with that tradition, so you set something up pretty good there. Good to see you.
Like Rick mentioned, when you think of Susie, you also think of Fred. They're kind of like a package deal. Many a Memorial Day, there's Susie, there's Fred. I'd come into town hall some days, there's Fred sitting there, stuffing an envelope, helping Susie out. So they are a package deal, and it's great that they're getting time to spend together. And this committee had a lot of faith in Susie when Susie didn't have so much faith in herself, but we all knew she could do it, and she did, and she got her master tax collector test and was able to fulfill the position just like we knew she would do. Sometimes Susie doubted herself, sometimes we knew it and we had her back. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Susie, I know you're retired. I hated to see it when you announced that you were retiring. I wish I was here the day that you did fully retire. But the memories, you can't take those away. I mean, just to see your smiling face and to hear your pleasant voice on the phone when I would call or I would come in here, it was a nice, pleasant relief from the stress that we all encounter every day. You always brighten everyone's life. So you will be missed as an employee, but you will always be loved.
Thank you.
Any comments from the folks on the side of the table?
Susie, we've been through a lot through all these years together, 18 years together, as co-workers and as friends. I want to wish you the best in your retirement. And thank Fred for all the donated time that he provided over those 18 years. And just wish you the best.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Call me anytime you need me.
Start crying with it.
We should have gotten a box of Kleenex. I thought about doing that on the way here.
She's really great and she knows exactly. She knows exactly how I feel, and we work really well together. She's like my mom, and she's I always tell everybody that I was her daughter. We would do a separate, a different take here. Okay. Really? So we talk on the phone all the time, so we're good. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
This isn't quite baby.
As we did during the, Terry, how many comments were making? Terry and Susie have worked very close together, and I can tell you that writing that proclamation was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
We, as we did with the Bob Perry Hour a few weeks ago, we are going to open up this meeting to the public, specifically comments or greetings and best wishes to Susie. So if anyone would like to make a comment at this time, you can be heard at this time. Jason?
Hi. For better or for worse, didn't have too many professional interactions with you, so I guess it means you're doing a good job. But I would just like to say my favorite memory of you is when my wife and I were walking our son around the community day over at Seneca a few months ago, and you were there in the dunk tank insisting that we throw. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that for a tax collector.
Are you coming back to do the dunk tank?
We made a lot of money. I'm the tax collector.
Anybody else? I get to go last. When I was elected in 2010, I was the new kid on the block. I was the first real new member of the committee that they'd had in quite some time. And so I was trying to get my bearings a little bit. And Susie was one person that I could always depend on. And she would always kind of say, hey, listen, here's how things go. And if I had a question about something, she was always there to kind of help me along. And that's been the same way with the whole staff. But the one cool thing about going to see Susie is that I was always able to depend on Mary Jane's. And also, one thing I always will never forget is when Rick and I would do the third grade visit, Susie would come up and talk about the tax collectors. It's like the one person, paying taxes is something we all have to do. You die and pay taxes. Those are the two things you do in life. And to have an opportunity to be able to go and pay taxes to Susie was a pleasure for a lot of folks. But I just want to say thank you for helping me along in the very early days of me being on committee. And it's been an absolute pleasure to participate in your retirement party this evening. I know you're not going anywhere. You're still part of our family no matter what. But, congratulations. Please a round for Susie. Okay. Motion to approve the bills, please. Second? Second. Questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Lee?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is a 2016 municipal budget. As you may recall, we had our budget introduction at our last meeting, and we put together a subcommittee made up of Mayor Emeritus Brown and Barton and Mr. Kramer to go through the budget, which they have done. At this point, I'll ask Mr. Barton and Mrs. Brown for a report on that subcommittee.
I'll defer to our senior member.
She can defer
Not by
to,
age, Kim.
and she,
I got you by
and
age.
she can defer to Mr. Kramer too. It's entirely up to her, but out of respect for you guys.
As you mentioned, the four of us did meet last Tuesday, and we went through pretty much the entire budget and looked at where we could make some cuts and other creative items that we could do to reduce the tax burden on the residents. We realized and had a lengthy discussion about cutting the budget, reduces the ceiling and kind of limits us for the future. So we were trying to not make as many cuts that would burden us for the future. So I'll go through the line items that we chose to look at and cut and read off what we did. So from engineering, we cut $2,000. We cut legal by $2,000, and I think one of those two was the two that was messed up on that.
Before you really get into this, Susie, I want, if you could stop with me for a second. If you want to head out, that's all right with us. Please stop. Not at all. No, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
That's the candidate too, but at least the rest.
You gotta be kidding.
Thank you for everything. This is a lot of proclamation. I think it's probably going to go home. You can take that home if you want. Give it with me. Take that. Take some. Here, Fred, let me have that. It's right in the box.
Susan, are you coming back to reprise your role as Santa Claus?
Very nice.
You're very welcome, thank you.
She thinks that 1 year of being Mrs. Claus is going to eradicate 18 years of collecting taxes. She's going to have a few more years left.
No sniffing, please. I can't handle it. Don't want
How's your eyes? Here, I'll carry these downstairs. I'll go down there. See you later. Carry these downstairs.
Thank you.
Go ahead, do it.
Okay. Let's see on the other side.
We need acorn. There you go, Margie. Easy. What's that the crazy operator there?
I just read it, I assume.
Next time you're here with the flock.
Let's go for it.
Anna said no big shit.
As usual, Anna wasn't asked.
Well, I said she wouldn't allow it, and I know that.
What's the mean, jelly bean?
That would be Anna. That would be Anna.
It's kind of, yeah, but more next to dots. Like making little panels where
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah, both sides, right?
Yeah, can't figure it out.
And what are they doing? The interior ones? That moves around this little one? Because if not, we'll go in front of the door, right?
Yeah, or I don't know how those locations. Oh, this is Joe Philly.
Yeah, it was, these two got a little.
Oh, then you went to
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how that is though with. You'd think it would take up too much of the solar space like the land. Yeah, wow.
Actually, when Meg and I met in college, we actually took one building, one class together. Knocked me out, running, and we were right his head with
And that English is saying, away we go. Nice, fine. See ya.
Did they sense that something was wrong?
There he comes. He's so married.
One off his house.
Yes. Yes.
And
Somehow getting from there because it's 6 years. This will be the next It would happen. It would. So you got to back that out. But that would have been what they introduced. Well, that's the 5. Right. Yes. Yes. It's not
Basically a three-dimensional X-ray as opposed to an MRI. It was just a ring though, it wasn't a big giant machine.
So hopefully he'll do a good explanation.
Terry's stuck behind you.
They had a he was. So this is what it's done. That's what they were originally pushing on. This is what we changed it to.
Let's come back into session. Should warn you, sorry about that. Okay. All right, Mr. Brown, thank you for the, thank you for the delay. Go ahead, you can finish.
Okay, so like I was saying, after 2.5 hours of us meeting last Tuesday evening, the conclusions that we came to bring the tax burden down to a 2-cent increase was the following line item cuts: engineering, $2,000, legal, $2,000, and I believe it's one of those two that we had the error on the original resolution that we changed tonight. All fuel for the fire and rescue were cut, $15,000 from the budget. Contingent was cut $5,000. The fire contribution, which was originally $150,000, was reduced to $90,000. But what we were doing was setting up line items for the fire department for the other $60,000 under the purchase order system. And we would be utilizing $105,000 additional surplus. The original deferred school taxes of $160,000 remains unchanged. These were the recommendations that we decided on based on our meeting last Tuesday evening.
Joe, anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to review for the public's benefit. We were looking to make bigger cuts to our legal and our engineering. Unfortunately, we have a lawsuit that has to be settled. If we lose that lawsuit, we have to pay both sides of that lawsuit. So we did not cut the legal as much as we would have liked. The engineer, we looked at the engineer, and Mr. Guzzi is our new engineer, and his rates are about 30% less than the previous engineer. However, there are many projects, and I'll go over them, that were carried over from previous years that have not been completed yet. Committeeman Franz and I have been on a subcommittee looking at all the facilities and how we're going to use them someday, meaning town hall, the community center, public works, etc. If we should act on that, we will need some funds to move on that. There is the radio towers proposed that went in front of the Land Development Board that was approved last year to construct radio towers at the Emergency Services Building for communication purposes, not just for the squad, but also for to CERT team. There's various drainage projects that were not completed last year. There's an issue of Bud Court. Well, that is a bonded item. We do have to oversee that. 2013, the rec grant is just being completed. 2015, the rec grant is ongoing now, which is for tennis courts. And then we have 2016 rec budget, dugout roofs, picnic tables, the pavilion, etc., the ball fields. And then we have our 2016 road program, which we talked about that we may be able to defer some of those engineering costs into next year if we delay that road program until later this year. So we didn't feel comfortable cutting the engineering budget because we've got to wrap up all these projects. Unfortunately, when these projects were carried forward, the engineering costs were not. So that's the two big things that we looked at that we thought we could get a bigger reduction in. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Kim, anything else?
No.
Doug or Terry or Mr. Haynes, you still on the board?
Yep.
Any?
Still down here.
Okay. Any further comments on this?
No, I believe the committee have covered it.
Okay. I want to thank Mrs. Brown, Mr. Bart, Doug, you as well, Terry, Rodney, Kevin, and his who was here in his absence. Thank you for taking the effort to put this together. This is certainly is a lot of work and was a lot of work to get to this point. Also want to recognize the fire company and the emergency squad who also, they tightened their belts a little bit also. They were very helpful in terms of reducing some of their line items. Specifically, the fuel is mentioned as one of the line item cuts. So everyone played a part in terms of getting us to a responsible budget for 2016. And I recognize it took a lot of work starting back in January, but clearly this is the most comprehensive process we've gone through in getting a budget together. And it's very responsible, and essentially it's our responsibility as a community to do this on the governing body. So with that being said, unless there's any other comments from the members of the committee?
The only other comment I want to make, Mayor, is that Mrs. Brown talked about how we restructured the funding for the fire company. And Mr. Kramer is in the process of scheduling meetings with the chief and with their treasurer. There really is no cut to their budget, but it's more of an accountability and a process of how we can keep better line items for what the fire company is and keep a separate budget year after year after year so that we know how to budget for those items. And hopefully over time we'll see some consistency. So there is $90,000, which is in accordance with the contract that we have with the fire company. But rather than give them the $150, we took the $60 set aside. We're going to put it into purchase order. We're even looking at having an open purchase order where up to a certain dollar amount for anything they need they can use. So we'll be, Mr. Kramer's in the process of scheduling that meeting, and Mrs. Brown and I will be reporting back at a later date about that.
Okay. Anything else from the committee? Need a motion to approve the budget amendment resolution. You guys hear me?
I'll make the motion, we work on it.
Need a second, please?
I'll second it.
Public hearing on this will be on May 23rd, 2016, which is incidentally our next meeting. It'll be an opportunity for the public to comment specifically on these items that were in the amended budget. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Franzen?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Resolution 2016-69, approving the street opening permit for Medford Lakes Road and Woodside Drive. We also have one for, there's three here, I'll do all three of them. 2016-69, 2016-70, 2016-71. I'm sorry, you're right. We'll just do two. 2016-70. Block 201, Lot 310, 40 Mockingbird Way. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second? Any questions or comments? Doug, any comments?
Dan has talked to them about the Mepper Lake Road Woodside Drive, and they will be applying the same process of which they did at Forest Lane and Mepper Lakes.
Roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Barton.
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yeah.
Mayor Lee?
Yes. Resolution 2016-71, approving appointment for electrical subcode official. Need a motion and a second, and we'll discuss.
I'll make the motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Ed Maselli is our electrical subcode official, whose appointment actually happened to coincide this month, so which is why we're doing this. Doug, any further comments?
This will be his second 4-year appointment, which means he'll be tenured into the position. I've talked to Tom, and his recommendation is also to appoint.
Okay. Questions or comments in the committee? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Lee?
Yes. Reports, we don't have Mr. Guzzo with us tonight. Mr. Haynes, any comments?
I have none.
Okay. How are things at the snack stand?
Next stand's going fine when I can keep the rain away.
Yeah. Looking forward to the grand opening of the plaque dedication after Memorial Day.
Okay.
Doug?
This year, the township has to get approval to have the parade on Carranza Road from the county. We've started that process. We're fairly far through it. We have provided them with insurance, and we are working with the legal staff at the JIF on a hold harmless agreement that's acceptable to all parties. The original letter has run into a number of situations with other JIF towns in which they've made some modifications. So we should be able to have that signed here shortly. But what I need tonight from the committee is a motion to approve the parade. Because I have nothing official saying we have the parade. It's never been an issue with the committee before, but the county needs a motion.
Okay. Need a motion to have the Memorial Day parade. Second?
You have a second, but I want to talk about that a little bit. Doug, does this have to do with the county's new road opening occupancy policy that they adopted December 28th?
It may have something to do with that. It's been around a little longer than that. It stems from some situations that have occurred in some larger communities where they close the streets and hold festivals. And I'm going to surmise that there's been an incident or two somewhere that has made them change their former policy.
I can tell you, in that new 37-page document, there is a section for events and closing of roads, and you do have to notify. You're right.
So
I'm glad you picked up on it.
So that's, we've approached that, between that and the things that have come up at the JIF meetings. The two combinations, I thought we needed to get ahead of it rather than be sitting here on Friday before the parade.
What's interesting, Doug, the way it's written about closing the road to have an event in the road, like a party. It doesn't really address parades.
No. And that is part of the situation that needs to be addressed with the JIF.
Does it cover stuff like the Cranberry Festival in Chatsworth? When they
Yes.
leave the road open?
Yes.
So what does that mean? They're going to close the road?
That means that Woodland Township will have to get ahead of this and figure out what they're going to do.
Okay.
Yes, roll call, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
The county has also sent along a letter to the mayor telling us of our grant award of $77,000 to fund improvements at the tennis courts at Prickett's Mill, and also to say this award brings the total of grant money from the county recreation program since its inception to $577,000. I just want to remind everybody what that grant money has done, and that and the community development block grant, which we've used in our parks over the years. Community development block grant has allowed ADA accessibility at both parks, pathways to the fields, paved parking areas for handicap parking at both parks. It took a number of years to get them done. Probably took a series of 4 years to get that accomplished. The recreation grant from the county has paid for the stack stand. This is the major one from the 2011 grant. The 2013 has provided ADA accessible bleachers at all the fields, all the baseball fields and all the softball fields. We already had ADA accessible bleachers at the soccer fields. It has provided the funding for the dugout roofs at all the softball fields at Prickett's Mill and the 2 lit fields at Patty Boger, and has done the preliminary concrete work and benches at Patty Boger. So just wanted to allow the public to know that all that money that we've been spending on the parks is all the grant money through the county recreation department and community development block grant program. It's also run by the county, but it's a federal program. That's all I have.
Anything else? That's very helpful tonight. Appreciate it. Pete?
A couple things, Mayor. I did have in your packet a draft of a license agreement for the TAA concerning the snack stand. I think it covers everything that would be applicable in the relationship. It's modeled after that which is in place with the fire company and the squad regarding their facilities, although it's stripped down a bit. There's not as much to it as a result of the nature of their occupation in the building itself. So I'd ask that the committee go ahead and take a look at that. I think we're showing, we'll go ahead and forward it to any other stakeholders from the TAA, and that would be right for consideration after we get any feedback and you've had enough time to look at it. Mr. Cooper had mentioned several times the LoSAP statute. With some enthusiasm at the last meeting, he felt that there were some issues concerning information exchange and certification of the LoSAP program, so I took a hard look at that statute. And while I understand Mr. Cooper's concern, I didn't find any deadlines for the submission of the information, but it is to be done annually. That's clear from the statute that there has to be a certification process by the governing board, that it has to be pursuant to the roster and other qualification information that will be submitted by the provider, and then annually it has to be certified. I didn't find any hard deadlines. Certainly, it has to be done annually in good faith, and we have to follow that process. In the course of looking into that and looking around, I did find a very recent comptroller report from the state of New Jersey, authored in June of 2015, that outlined a number of problems with LoSAPs throughout the state, a number of compliance issues and other issues. So I thought I would distribute that to the administrator and the committee, that we could use that as a guide for making sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing with respect to LoSAP. And certainly, if we haven't certified participation levels and the contribution that's necessary for 2015 or any years, we certainly need to get that done. I think we're working towards that end. Yeah, you do. Okay. So you're aware of it already. So it's helpful because it talks about some of the other programs and a complete and thorough review of those programs and suggestions to make sure that every program is in full compliance. So I do appreciate Mr. Cooper's enthusiasm and comment. I did look at it, prompted by his concern, and I'm sure that the committee and Doug will follow up and we'll ensure that that program is being operated. It also should be a separate line item to fund it in the budget, and I noticed that we do have that. It does require, as I saw the statutes, and I'll let Rodney comment if he wants, but I think it's supposed to be a line item in the budget. So we'll take a look at that issue as well and make sure we're complying there. Beyond that, with respect to the Long Street property, which is one of the problem properties, we were pursuing a court order for an inspection. In doing so, we determined that there may be enough information based on prior inspections and prior notices that have been served that we may find that the situation is ripe for enforcement without having to go to the court for an inspection. I also have a seminar coming up on Thursday related to such municipal issues as they surround abandoned and dilapidated and unsafe buildings. And so I also wanted the benefit of having participated in that before I make a final conclusion and recommendation to the committee. And that's specifically with respect at this point to the Long Street property. I think Wimbledon Way is all but finished, or at least 90% there.
About 90% there.
So it appears most of the danger and the conditions out there have been abated. And I know Mr. Boyd is working on the other properties that have been previously identified. But the only one I'm active on at this point would be Long Street. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Mr. Barton.
Peter, I did read your draft, which is that license agreement. I do have some comments that I'll send to you. But when I read the ordinance for the recreation, which is 2-8, it appears there may be some conflicts because we give a lot of rights to the Tabernacle Recreation Committee. And I'm just wondering if this should be more addressed to them than the TAA. But I'll send you my comments so you have them. But Doug, I wanted to ask you, in this document it says the township shall pay the cost for phone, cable, internet, and alarm and security. Do we have phone, cable, internet in that building? And alarm and security?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I was only put in there in the draft to spur that conversation and make sure that we're clear on those issues.
Okay. And then there's a section of our ordinance 2-8H which says that the association, which means the rec committee, it directs the associations to pay the utility bills at the park. Are there separate meters for each of the lighting systems that are there and for the building, for the new snack stand?
They're all on the building meter.
So there's one meter.
One meter.
So how do we capture the cost of the lights for organizations that use the lights so it complies with our ordinance?
They have looked at that a number of years ago and have come up with a dollar amount. The Athletic Association pays that, and then they, for outside organizations that use the field, use the lighting, they're charged a per game or multiple game fee that covers that expense. But it's back to the Athletic Association since they pay the bill.
Don't be here, you're doing that. The other thing I have there is on April 28th and 29th, I went to the New Jersey Conference of Mayors down at the Borgata, and last week I was at the New Jersey Emergency Preparedness Conference, which was at the Tropicana. And it was all about safety and security. At the Mayor's Conference, they had a 2.5-hour panel discussion about safety and security of municipal facilities. Emergency Preparedness is very similar. Also at the Mayor's Conference, they had a panel discussion with all the utilities in the state, and they reviewed Storm Sandy, and also last June 23rd, straight line winds. And the president of Atlantic Electric was there. And one of the things I discussed with him, when we had Superstorm Sandy, we had our public works out doing a lot of work. And then when the crews came into town, the Atlantic Electric crews do training for our fire department and for our rescue squad. And because our public works were so intricately involved, they also, I believe, Doug, we scheduled training for public works, didn't we? So that,
With the Lansing Electric, no.
No?
We have not talked about it, but they're not.
Okay. Well, they're willing to do that for us. They're willing to train our public works for us. And what this is about is that day of that storm, I was in Medford, and I came here after the storm, and I came by way of Tabernacle Road. I was out on Route 70, just to see the damage. It took me about an hour and a half to get home because of the number of trees that were down. And of course, with the trees came down the wires. And we had public works folks out there pushing the trees off the road. And they need to be aware of those wires and what those wires are, just like our fire department, our rescue squad does. So that's an opportunity that's available to us, but, and we can schedule and facilitate that, or maybe the next time they come to do the rescue squad and the fire department, we get our public works involved with that also.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. Franzen?
I'll pass.
Kim? Nice to have you. Nothing?
Nothing.
Joe?
Nothing.
I've got a couple things. I want to thank the public and the emergency squad and the fire company for flexibility with the agenda. Our plan was, as we talked about, was to have a public discussion regarding the emergency services report and for the public to be able to have some dialogue with the fire company and the emergency squad. But the budget is the top priority as far as we're concerned, which is why the agenda item was moved. So I want to thank the flexibility of the fire company, emergency squad, as well as the public. That will be rescheduled. We will have that opportunity to be able to discuss those issues. And that will happen after we get the budget passed. We may even put it on the next agenda depending on how things go with the public comment during the budget hearing. I attended the Explorer car wash on Saturday. They had the car wash on Saturday when it was raining, unfortunately. But that was, I got my car washed on rain, but that's okay. Contribute. I wanted to report that Pete and Doug and I met with Chief Jackson, Terry Zane, and Keith Zane to go over discussions regarding a contract between Tabernacle Township and Tabernacle Rescue Squad in terms of specifically emergency service provider contract. We had some very good discussion. We have some preliminary agreement on a lot of items on that with that contract. Pete, you can elaborate on if you'd like. Sure.
Based on that meeting, I was charged with preparing a draft agreement for the EMS. It appeared that there was an agreement in principle on all the main issues associated with that agreement. I think that the squad made some concessions with respect to fuel and otherwise. The township made some concessions to the squad, and as I understand it from sitting in on that meeting and the charge that I received from both the squad's understanding and of course I'm representing the committee in the context of such a meeting. But it appears that I should be able to have a draft that will meet everybody's expectations. I'm not aware. It appeared that there was universal agreement, so I'll have the draft out next week and that'll be available for public consumption.
I'll have that for the committee as well.
Of course, well, I'll get it out to the committee first.
Should go to two parties before it's got the public.
Of course, yeah. So it'll go to the squad and to the committee, and then you'll handle it from a timing standpoint as you
That's what he meant.
That's what it meant.
Anything else on that? Anything else on that? No. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. At this time, that's all I have in terms of comments and my report. At this point, we'll open up the meeting to the public. If you're interested in being heard this evening, you can raise your hand, come to the sound of the room. I will call on you. Mrs. Brown is running the clock tonight for 3 minutes. At this point, we'll open the meeting to the public. Mr. Cooper.
John Cooper, 21 Woodside Drive. Yeah, 3 little things. Mr. Lang mentioned the report on LoSAP that was done by the
Comptroller's office, yeah.
I would recommend all of you read that. I also recommend that you give a copy of that to our officers of the fire department. Covers a lot of stuff that's shady that went on throughout the state. I have a question and maybe an answer. You just went through budget talks and you're concerned for saving the taxpayers' money. As you may or may not know, the school population has gone down. Continues to dwarf as our population gets older. Maybe it's time to reconsider merging with another township. I don't know what the procedure is for that, whether which comes first, the chicken or the egg. The school board does it or the township does it. think it's the township, because the township is the funding agency of the school board. It may be time to relook into that. With 2 schools, we get rid of a superintendent and $160,000 or $70,000 a year and the staff. You save a lot of money. Very unpopular with politicians, very unpopular with people that want Chloe to go to the school because they have home rule, which they really don't. Another thing that you may want to look into next year's budget, the balance billing of the emergency squad. They created a surplus, and they put it to good use. They've done an excellent job. Most townships do the balance billing and receive the funds. Maybe we should look into that as an additional source of revenue to kind of relieve some of the taxpayers. You know, something, you're talking about contracts with the squad and stuff right now. Maybe it's something to consider. You're talking about a couple $100,000 a year. If that surplus continues to build, what are they going to do with that money? Buying shiny objects? Think about it. It's a chance to put some more money in that could be used for other things, and, you know, give the taxpayers back some of the money that they're funding over there.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, I do want to make one comment. I attended a coffee with a Congressman MacArthur on Thursday of this week over in Chemung. And out the hallway I was talking with the mayor of Chemung and also mayor of Woodland Township. And the issue that Mr. Cooper brings up is that enrollment is declining in Chemung as well as Tabernacle as well as Woodland Township. And it's a very difficult discussion to have, but I'm planning to sit down for coffee with the mayor of Chemung, just to more of a get acquainted type discussion, but it's one of the topics we'll certainly talk about. Absolutely, of course.
Just to add a little to that, Mr. Cooper, many years ago, and I'm going to say, Mr. Kramer, prior to you being on the board, or just as you got on the board?
Probably just before I got on the board.
The Tabernacle School District was in negotiations with Woodland Township to merge the school districts. And the problem that came about at that point was Tabernacle was going to take Woodland Township, but the Tabernacle Township taxes were going to go up, and Woodland Township taxes were going to go down. So that's why that merger didn't happen then. So it's just, you just have to be very careful when you do it, because there may be a winner and a loser, depending on who's getting and who's giving. I just wanted to give you, it has been looked at in the past, that's all I just.
I knew that was coming, with all due respect, and that was in the past.
No,
Now
I'm
there
just
are
saying.
other incentives that the governor especially is trying to encourage school districts to go. Maybe Woodland isn't the ideal situation. Maybe Southampton, Chemung is.
I just wanted to tell you that, you know, it has been and it looms on the radar all the
I'm
time.
aware of that, yeah.
We try to do it, when I was on the school board down in Green Bank, we tried to do it with Bass River. And we shared the BA, we shared the superintendent for a while. And you get to that territory thing where you almost don't have really a home. It's really, they didn't do it. And Green Bank School's got a beautiful building down there with about 60 kids in it. Anyway.
The school board is doing a strategic committee planning. They've asked for comment from residents. It's a survey. If you go to our website or the school website, you can download the survey and put those recommendations, answer the questions. I'm sure there's a portion in there that you can put that recommendation. But the long-range strategic planning committee is presently meeting at the school to look at where this goes down the future. So that may be where you can put that comment directly to them also.
Anyone else for the public at this time? Mrs. Brooks?
Can you tell me the total amount of expenses that were cut from the budget? What was that total amount in this amendment?
Rod, do you have that easy?
Gary probably has it easier.
24,000.
24,000?
Yes, 24,000.
At the last meeting, Mr. Kramer, you mentioned some, you held a discussion about LoSAP and the inability to produce the 2015 report. And I was a little bit confounded by your comments in the main, because I have received at least 4 or 5 months worth of LoSAP reports for the year 2015. And I know that Mrs. Freeman, the former fire district treasurer, not only was very meticulous with that budget, but is by and large is probably coming into your 2014 discussions, very meticulous about it. So I was a little bit surprised that you didn't have the 2007 resolution, and 2, that this discussion was taking place about what constitutes an active member. My question is related to the LoSAP reports that I received. First of all, what changed between the time that I received them, which was about the first few months of 2015, and 2, are the reports that I received accurate?
The reports you received are accurate based on the 2007 resolution. I believe. I have not verified totally everything as of yet, but with some of them, I have to sit down with the fire chief and go over them again. But what has come to light in all this is everybody's been using the recommendation by the subcommittee as the document that's attached of what the new point system is and what the changes in the point system were. It all refers to
what subcommittee is that? The subcommittee that you just mentioned? Oh, I thought you said that they were using a point system.
They were using the public committee from the fire district subcommittee that looked at the change from the 2003 ordinance to the 2007 resolution to change it. It appears from the minutes that everything was done the way it was supposed to be done, what I can find so far, but I cannot find 2007-10, which is the resolution they reference as making the final change. What's been attached to every report since 2010 has been the subcommittee's report. It does not verify that. I've tried to talk to Lincoln Financial, which I've learned that they're not required to have anything. I have not caught up to DCA on what that is.
Have you talked to Mrs. Friedman?
I have talked to most of the other commissioners, former commissioners. I have not talked to Mrs. Friedman. We have not had, other than some preliminary stuff that I may have asked that she said to go look in the minutes. It should be there, and that's where I was looking at the minutes. It references it, but it does not include it in the minutes. Now, I know you received a lot of their minutes in the time. If you have a copy of it, I'd welcome it from you also.
Well, I can check. I'll check.
Because I know you kept a lot of, you opened a lot of documents and you kept a lot of documents. If you have a copy of the 2010, 2007-10 resolution. 7-10.
I would think that Mrs. Freeman or Nancy would be the best person to go to.
I've looked through her last records and I thought that's where it would be. It was not there. And I talked to her a little bit. She said check the minutes, and that's what I've done.
Well, what's the significance if you can't find the...
Then the points change for all the members that received last year, and we'll go back to the 2003.
So that would be just for 2014, or would that take it all the way back?
I'm not going back further. I'm worried about certifying what I have to certify.
Okay.
Since the township took it.
Since the township took it over.
Okay.
The 2014 was certified was presented by Nancy to me, and I used her documents and sent that forward.
Okay, so it's only 2014 and 2015 that you will be responsible for with regard to certifying the LoSAP reports for 2015.
I took what Nancy gave me last year, because she kept excellent records, you're all right. I was glad to receive them, and she was gracious enough to finish the year out for me, so I didn't have to go back and start halfway through the year or partway through the year. So Nancy was gracious enough to do that for us, and that's what we forwarded. And when I went to look at them, we used the subcommittee's report on what the changes would be. And I don't know if that's what went to Trenton and they approved it, or the resolution, but they reference a resolution in the minutes. So that's what I'm basing it on. There was no resolution tied.
I think it would be 5-second call to call DCA. I mean, they could probably, being that your administrator, tell you what they have in terms of resolutions.
I just haven't had time to do that with everything else I'm doing at this point.
Okay.
To dedicate the time to be, it's not, DCA isn't normally a single phone call and 5-minute answer.
Well, I'm sure you could file an open request for that. I'd be happy to fulfill it. So
I'm sure
that might only take 7 days, actually, and you might have it faster. So,
I'll keep that in mind.
Right, exactly. And, the only other thing is I've been writing about the comptroller's report for a long time, for at least 2 years since it came out. So I would encourage everybody to read that report and take it very seriously. The other thing that I do have a question about, just one thing at the budget, when you can clarify, I know there will be a hearing, but in the official budget, has the 2016 cap, I don't have the sheet, I don't have the budget with me, but has has the 2016 capital expenses changed? Has anything in that itemization changed? Stuart, do you have that? Yeah, this would be sheet 40B, that's all I want to know. It's the one with the 2016.
What's the down payment?
The down payment is 130, but that's for SCBA, it has in parentheses SCBA and PPE.
No. Center column.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry.
Yes, this is the correct one.
That is still obtained. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Brooks.
You're
Anyone else in
welcome.
the public at this time, Mr. Brooks? You have something, really?
Stuart Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. First, it's good to see Committeewoman Brown back and in action. And the comment I have is, while you were away and phoning in, I could barely hear what was going on. As you know, I sit in the front row. I sit closer than anyone in this building except for the board itself. And I had a terrible time hearing. I would have made the comment last meeting. I didn't. I'm making it this meeting. Should this come up again when someone phones in, I think by that time we should have a better system in place, because I couldn't attend the meeting in that sense because I couldn't hear it.
Do we have a phone line up here? No.
Yes.
We did,
In the back?
other end of the.
Where are those, I used to have them when I was in the hotel business, tabletop speakers, you guys know?
We have speaker that we can use on
See, we can't hear you. It's not a private discussion.
And the other comment is,
We'll look into it, Mrs. Brooks. I had asked a question about a speakerphone.
Thank you.
along the same lines, it's human nature, I suppose, that when you respond to comments from the public, or even among yourselves, often the conversations go side to side among the group at the table. And when that happens, it's not as if you're off record, but it means that we in the public can't hear. And again, I'm a real good barometer for that, because I'm sitting 6 feet away from you. So I know if I'm having trouble hearing you, I would imagine most everyone else is as well. And I don't know that there's a technological solution to that. I'm sure there is, but there's also a behavioral solution to that, and that's to try and monitor when you start moving your head to the side to have a conversation with your next door neighbor, that chances are the public's not hearing what you have to say. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Jason?
Hi, Jason Lidowitz, 5 Forest Court. I just want to clarify, I don't think I heard you say when the meeting with the chiefs will be. Is that next meeting?
I didn't say.
Okay, will it be next meeting?
I don't know yet, we haven't set the agenda.
Okay, so it may potentially not occur until June?
That's correct.
Okay, because if I'm not mistaken, the only meeting in June is June 27th, so that'll be a full 2 months since the first public hearing. So if you don't have it in June, please have it soon. Thank you.
Any other comments to the public at this time? Seeing no one close the public? Need a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, folks.